good day, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, with Rabbi Chaim Coffman in Israel. It's always a joy to be with him. This week, we're on our 8th part of Chapter 2, Mishnah 5. And I just want everybody out there to know that these rabbis can spend weeks and weeks and months elaborating on the little points of each part of Pirkei Avos. They're so important, and there's always something that we can draw and put into practice from it. It's just a joy to hear the Torah being shared out of the nation of Israel. So let's just tune right in and see how Rabbi Coffman's doing. Rabbi, you're live on the air. Always a joy to be with you.
Always a pleasure. We could spend days, weeks, almost learning anything. It was said in the name of the Vilna Gaon, more than 250 years ago, of Elijah of Vilna, that he could have spent his whole life on the first pages of Tractate Brachot, right? On the first page. He said he could spend his whole life. So I don't know exactly, you take that metaphorically, you take that at face value, but people think that, I already learned about this. I know somebody that said, grew up in Israel, secular Jew, was like, Tanakh, I already learned about that. It's like a subject I took, I already learned that. Yeah, you learned it like a 2-year-old, like a 5-year-old. You learned about the story. You understand how deep it is. I mean, Torah, the King David says in the book of Psalms, it's as wide as the ocean, right? It's as expansive as, everything. So imagine, what we do, we could spend, we might spend part 9, part 10, I don't know. See how far this Mishnah goes, right? But the idea is that, there's no end. Torah is not like an academic subject. It's not like,
can it? No.
It's so expansive. There's this unbelievable, there's unbelievable depth. Even
beautiful, delicious.
Even without going off on tangents, it's just trying to explain, and trying to understand, which is actually a good segue to this part of the Mishnah, right? Because now we're at the part of the Mishnah where it says that don't make a statement that cannot be easily understood on the ground that it will be understood eventually, right? So now we have to understand, exactly what that means. Now, simple explanation we would say is that when a person speaks, in general, forget about Torah. We'll get to Torah. But when a person speaks to someone else, there should be no doubts about what they meant, right? It should be clear. Right? A person shouldn't say, well, if they think deeply into it, they're going to understand. What's the problem? When it comes to Torah, it's going to lead a person to make mistakes, right? It's going to lead them to heresy. Because if you don't think into it, let's say, we'll give an example. The Torah says, the book of Genesis, when God wants to create man, he says, let us make man in our image, right? So who's we, right? Civils, it's a civil complex, right? All 6 of us, right? He's talking to the heavenly court. He's showing his humility that God doesn't have to speak to the heavenly court. He could have created man without speaking to the heavenly court, right? But what happens? He wants to show his humility, but people can make mistakes and say, see, it says, let us make God, man in our image, right? People can make a mistake, and they can say, there's more than one God, right? So what does Rashi and others answer? They answer that, yeah, that could happen. And a person certainly could make a mistake, but that's free choice, right? When God says, let us go down to Sodom and see what's going on. You don't think you know what's going on in Sodom? I think he knows what's going on in Sodom. Right, but
it was
again,
all our days before they began.
It's humility, right? It's showing humility. Now, there's a lot to this aspect of the Mishnah, right? First thing we said is make sure there are no doubts, right? So now, if you're giving over Torah, and I know of some people that want to give over Torah at a very high level, even if no one understands, right? There are some people that will speak in Kabbalistic terms, right? They'll have all these non-Jews watching, have all these idiots trying to think they understand the Kabbalistic terms. Like I always say, if someone is doing the times table, you ain't doing calculus, right? So I hear non-Jews speaking about, the spiritual worlds, and what is this and what is, they can mimic things.
It's your
They can
last Tanakh talk show.
They can mimic things, but they don't have a clue what they're talking about, right? Because if you don't know the Aleph Beis, if you don't know the Aleph Beis, what are you learning Kabbalah for? Right? If you can't do the times table or you're doing the times table, you can't do calculus, right? It's very simple. So why are these so-called speakers, some of them, why are they speaking in Kabbalistic terms? Sounds good. Very esoteric, right? It's going to draw people. I get it, right? Speak about spiritual world, speak about demons, like I spoke about last week, right? But I speak about controversial issues, so that's a different thing. Right? But if you're doing that on a regular basis, most people aren't going to understand no matter how much you water it down. So what's the point? Right? In other words, if you're going to speak above everybody else, it doesn't make any sense. What kind of students are you going to have? They're not going to be able to repeat what you say. Right? At any level. At any level. So whatever a person says, whether in Torah or not, and we'll speak about Torah in 1 second, right? It has to be clear. So I did a video on Tanakh Talk about whether a person's allowed to teach Torah for money, right? So got a lot of flack. It was whatever. Why did I pick that topic? Why do we pick that topic?
Because what was the final outcome?
Final outcome is
yes or no?
You're allowed to take money, right? In other words, it's cognitive dissonance. If I would say, listen, a guy's going to come and fix your washing machine, right? Now, only if you're a Jew, you're not going to haggle with the price, right? He comes in, he fixes that, because I had a case, something happened to my washing machine. A week later, something else went. So I said, you're still going to charge me? It's like, yeah, of course I'm going to charge you because it's something else. Or a friend of mine was a computer consultant, said if I have to walk into someone's house and they couldn't figure out how to turn their computer on, I'm charging them $100. Right? That's not my fault. They're stupid, right? Or they transgress the 615th commandment and don't be a moron, right? That's not my fault. But you cannot overcharge, right? Your time is worth something. So there's cognitive dissonance. If someone takes a course online, quote unquote, an educational course, a college course, they're going to say, I'm not paying for that. I'm not paying for, what do you mean not paying for that? They're giving you value. They're giving you, you're taking a course in basket weaving, right? Basket weaving, right? There is such a course in some schools. You can take some sort of joke course. You're going to pay through the nose. What do you mean I'm not paying for it? That's part of my education. Oh, a plumber you're going to argue with? No. Someone to fix your washing machine you're going to argue with? Unless you're Jewish? No. Right? Teaching Torah? Oh, that's different. You can't do that. And someone brought me a great proof. They say, look at Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu was in the desert, he didn't charge anyone to teach them Torah. I said, of course he didn't teach. Of course he didn't he didn't charge them because God made him rich. God made him rich through the tablets. He didn't have to charge anyone, right? So we're going to see one day, probably, in the next 50 years, we're going to see that, yeah, there is an idea of not teaching, of not charging. That's true. But what about teaching children Torah? What about teaching in the yeshiva, right? So what are you getting paid for teaching children? What are you getting paid for? Classroom discipline, right? You're like an overpaid babysitter. That's what you're getting, okay, you give them a little bit of Torah, but that's, classroom control. That's what you're getting paid for. Now, what about someone teaching Torah, to older kids or whatever? So you're going to say, well, they can't charge, right? They can't charge how they're going to live, right? So it's a whole different thing. We'll speak about it. But what came out? Someone put up a post, and this is why you have to be very, very careful on any social media. You put up a post that better be absolutely clear, right? If someone misinterprets it, that's not necessarily your fault, right? But it has to be absolutely clear. So what did this person say? This person said somebody was selling a course, to teach Noahides of all people, right? Selling a whole bunch of discs to teach Noahides at a astronomical price. Now, what was the person claiming? The person's claiming if you don't take this course, you don't buy my disc, how are you going to become a Noahide? Right? That was the claim. Now, let's say, This person's on the up and up, and he knows what he's doing. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, doesn't matter. But he's charging an arm and a leg. So this person puts a post up, and he says that, or they say that, look, this person, look what this person's doing. He's claiming if you don't take the course, you're not going to know what it means to be a Noahide. Now, what's the inference? Now, I contacted this person privately because I came to the same conclusion.
Good for you.
What is the inference? The very simple inference, without getting into Kabbalah, without getting into Midrash, will make the Karaites happy over here, right? What is the inference? The inference is you're not allowed to charge to teach Torah. That's the inference, right? Now, forget about overcharging, right? According to this, and I wasn't the only one who thought this, there are many other people who commented, what, you're not allowed to charge to teach Torah? So what the person meant was you're not allowed to overcharge, right? You're certainly not allowed to overcharge, right? But he was coming on the fact and saying, how could this person say, if I don't take this course, then I'm not going to become a Noahide, right? But there's a much deeper idea. The much deeper idea is, how in the world can he charge so much to do this? That was what the underlying theme was. Now, being a good boy, I didn't call him out publicly, right? So I sent him a text.
Good.
And I said, like, people could misinterpret this because they already have, by saying that you're saying you're not allowed to charge money, for the sake of teaching Torah. So the person said, I didn't mean about you. I wasn't talking about you. You do a great job. I said, trust me, I wasn't offended, right? I mean, it takes a lot to offend me, but I said, I wasn't offended over here. I said, but you have to be squeaky clean, right? If you're going to say something, especially you're going to put it out in social media, especially if it's going to be Torah, you better darn well be clear what you're saying. Now, someone could say, right, you have this famous troll, hey, what does it say about Noahides? Right? In the Torah, it doesn't. It's rabbinical. All right? We're beyond that. So you can have people misinterpret or, like the Christians do all the time, misquote, misrepresent, and all that. So now, do I have to worry? Do I have to worry if I put up a video and someone says, I can infer you meant this? No, you can't, because I was clear. I was absolutely clear. So someone makes a mistake based on their own mishagas, their own craziness in their head, that's not my fault. That is clearly not my fault. If what was said is not clear, right, and then a person can make the wrong conclusion, and then it could lead a person to absolute heresy, that's the problem, right? That is essentially the problem that you're not allowed to do. So if that's with Torah, and it's much more severe, I would say that's about anything. Because if you speak to somebody and they ask you something, you're having a conversation, whatever it is, you do not want them to misinterpret what you said, right? Like, my Rebbe said something, I said, oh, so I said, so you're saying it's permissible? He said, I didn't say that. I never said that. Don't say it in my name. In other words, what he said was clear. Right? I was just making fun here, but what he said was absolutely clear. And if someone misinterprets that, that's their fault. Right? In other words, my job is done. If something is clear, someone misunderstood it themselves, they want clarification, that's fine. Right? If they misinterpret it themselves and they go off and be a heretic, but they did it because they wanted to prove themselves right. I'll give an example. Somebody I know that became Jewish, unfortunately, had been dabbling in Zen Buddhism for years, right? I don't know exactly how much, you dabble in Zen Buddhism, but okay. So I gave him a book to read. It was a book by Rabbi Akiva Tat, should be writes great books, wrote World Mask, was one book, Letters to a Buddhist Jew, right, was another book. And one of these books I gave him to look at, and something that he read said, oh, I knew Zen Buddhism was true. What do you mean? Right? This person's quoting Torah, backing up Torah, and he says, oh, this is in Zen Buddhism, right? Which may be true, right? Let's just say for argument's sake, everything's based on Torah, right? But when did Zen Buddhism come? Zen Buddhism came what, 900 years later? 1,000 years later? So they're going to be based on us, not the other way around. But if somebody themselves wants to be misled and you're giving them information that's 100% true and they misinterpret it, that's not my fault. In other words, they're taking it, to back up their own crazy idea. I remember at a, I was texting somebody, about something, this person's a Hebrew roots person and, all these other things. And I was saying what you're saying is not true, and I gave them proof. And with the proof I gave, they said, see, what I'm saying is exactly what you're saying. I was like, no, it's not actually, you're totally way off base because that's not what it says. No, but it backs up what I say. Okay, let's take 2 steps back. It doesn't. I can tell you in 5 different languages, it doesn't. And it doesn't work. But if someone wants to mess themselves up, they have free choice, right? So, so it has to be clear. And a person can't back off and say, oh, that's not what I meant, right? They're going to say, oh, it's Webster's 5th definition, right? Not even on base what you said, right? It could be on anything else. Someone gets caught, doing something and they say, oh, that's not what I meant. Or that's not what I said. I had someone on the phone once, many years ago. They made let's just say, a very disgusting comment. I called them on it, and they said, I never said that. So I said, what do you mean? I'm not senile, right? My hearing works just fine. I said, this is exactly what you said. They denied it. Right? So one second. So they're basically lying in order to cover themselves up. But they didn't apologize. They said, I never said it. Now, again, I was on the other end of the line. It's too bad I didn't tape it. Whatever. I didn't tape the call. But, I heard exactly what they said. Right? And that's what they said. So you have one or two choices. Right? In that situation when you get caught. Either you'll admit what you said and you'll try and back up why you said it. Right? Or you lie. You say, I never said it, or it was taken out of context. I had something I said many, many years ago. And the statement, I'm not going to say what the statement was, but I said a statement like, I feel like X. Right? I didn't say I am X. I said I feel like X. So 30 years later, I'll still never win that argument. You remember when you said that statement, but I never said it. I said like, and I'll never live it down, ever.
Yes.
Right? So even something that you said, even if it's true, but someone misconstrues it, right? So you're going to say that's not my fault, right? It made the person feel bad, but that's not my fault. Essentially, it's not that my fault. Why? Because they heard what they wanted to hear. Right?
Yeah,
Again, it's called cognitive dissonance. People hear exactly.
Selective hearing. Yeah.
Selective hearing. Right. They hear exactly what they want to hear. And in this case, no matter what I would say, right, it hasn't come up in a while. Probably, come up whenever. But, no matter what I'm going to answer, it's never gonna wipe it away. Because it was said, they heard what they heard, and that's it. Yeah, you had a question, comment?
Well, yeah, a lot of times people have an intent when they say something and it's misunderstood. You just mentioned about selective hearing, but I mean, when I was coming out of Christianity, Rabbi, I was doing a ton of study with the rabbis, trying to dig in Pirkei Avos and lots of Ramchal and the Rambam, and I'm learning all kinds of beautiful things, and situations just came up, and when I would give an answer, they would hear something totally different. It didn't matter how clear I spit it out. There's some people you can show them that the sky's not blue because it's dark at night. It's black at night. It's opaque.
Right, but what about when someone says something disgusting? Yeah. And then they have to backtrack, right? They can't say they didn't say it, right? They absolutely can't say, no, I never said it.
But we live in a marshmallow culture sometimes. Some of these marshmallows out here, you can't say anything without them being offended.
Again, it's going to depend what it is. And it's going to depend, let's say it's a racist statement, right? Or it's an anti-Semitic statement, right? I just spoke about this week, right? Which I mentioned. So, basketball player says, he's live streaming a video, playing on a video game, and he says the word kike, right? The word kike obviously is slanderous against a Jew, right? No question about it. These idiots do these things when their video camera's on, right? Can't deny what he said. Absolutely can't deny what was said, right? So he's not going to lie, and it's going to say, oh, I didn't think it was so bad, right? Maybe they'll say that. I didn't think it was so bad. Really? If this white guy would have said the N-word, right, against the black person, they would have flattened him like a pancake, right? On the other end, if a black person would have called someone a kike and that went on, nobody would have said anything, right? Because they're all afraid of blacks. And they do it all the time, black athletes, right? No offense to any black athletes out there. They do it all the time, and no one is called on it. Nobody. Oh, but a white person said it? So now we get another football player who's going to say, no, I'm going to invite him for Shabbos dinner. We're going to have matzo balls. We're going to have gefilte fish. Do me a favor. Teach them about Judaism, right? Teach them that anti-Semites exist from the beginning of time, and it's never going to end. When are people going to wake up and understand what Judaism has to say, right? First of all, this wide receiver's not even Jewish. But even if he would be Jewish, what's he offering him? You're going to come to me. We're going to have a great party. Gefilte fish, matzo balls. Okay, that's it. No more anti-Semitism. Are you an idiot? Do you understand what anti-Semitism is? There are countries in the world don't have any Jews, and there's anti-Semitism. So you want to tell me you're going to have matzo balls with this guy? Oh, that's the answer. No, he's an anti-Semite. He's an anti-Semite. He's an idiot. Okay, so what? So now you're going to have matzo balls and that's it? Right? He knew what he said. He was just foolish. He got caught on camera. Right? He knew exactly what he said. And Jewish anti-Semites just as bad. They don't backtrack. Right? They say the exact same things as non-Jewish anti-Semites. Right? So that, they don't backtrack on that. Oh, now he got caught. Now he got fined, suspended, whatever it is on the injured list anyway. He's not going to be playing the rest of the year. Doesn't really matter. You think this guy's going to get the message? I don't think he's going to get the message. Right? I don't care if you sit down with him and have 3 meals. It's really going to matter. You really want to explain to him the beauty of Torah, the beauty of Judaism? This guy should be watching, watching the Noahide World Center. Right? You want to really learn? You really want to understand? Okay, but I don't think that's the case. Sitting down and saying Jews aren't so bad, even though this guy isn't Jewish, right? Say Jews aren't so bad, that's going to stop him. It's like, oh yeah, I can't believe I said that. You Jews are okay. I'm done. I don't think so, right? I certainly don't believe that, right? But regardless, people have to take responsibility,
sure,
for what they say, right? And someone contacted me later, and they said it's so unbelievable in this day and age that people can say things, say racist things. I said, yeah, that's true, but I said I don't think anyone's ever got the message. You don't think people say things against blacks? Against Chinese, against Koreans, people don't make racist statements. They exist, right? You got to say, well, most people aren't. I didn't take a survey, right? And that's not really the point. Point is that people are racist. Not everybody. One second, not I'm not going to say everybody is. No question. That would be racist for me to say that, right? But we see what's going on even before COVID and even during COVID. All the anti-Semitic events. Going on in New York, and around the world. Anti-Semitism is alive and well, and God forbid, but it's alive and well. But what are we taught? We're taught that Esav hates Yaakov, right? Say, oh, Yaakov stole the blessing. Look what he did to his poor brother, and all that. Say, oh, that's where anti-Semitism started, right? And it always exists. So I told the story, because I know you fell asleep listening to me. I can't imagine how you did that, right? But I told the story of Rabbi Yerucham, the famous mashgiach of the Mir Yeshiva, the head of the spiritual mentor of the Mir Yeshiva, born 100 years ago. And Rabbi Yerucham tells the following story. He's walking down the street. 2 non-Jewish kids are playing ball. One ball goes over one of the kids' heads. They had to be 5, 6 years old, whatever it was. And Rabbi Yerucham bent down to pick up the ball to give it to the kid who went over his head. And the kid took the ball and he smacked him. He smacked him across the face. Right? So Rabbi Yerucham says, when he talks about Esav and Yaakov, right? And the fact that Esav hates Yaakov, he said, where did this kid learn this? How is it possible for a 5, 6-year-old kid to be able to do that.
Yeah, so deep.
Either you tell me his parents are rotten to the core. That's where he learned it. Maybe. He said, but that's not the case. He said the case is the fact that Esav hates Yaakov, and that non-Jews on a daily basis should be going up to Jews and smacking them in the face. Right? Why? Why? Whether we deserve it or not. Why? Because anti-Semitism exists. That's what it is. It's in the air. It's like butter you put on bread. That was a good metaphor. It's there. It's never ever going to disappear, until the Messiah comes. That's the bottom line. And, the generation before the Messiah comes, it's going to be a heck of a lot worse, right? It's going to be a heck of a lot worse. So I'm going to call out again, Mr. Edelman, Julian, get a life, because you're never going to make him understand. You're never going to make this guy understand that Jews are okay, that anti-Semitism is bad. You're never going to be able to do that by giving him some borscht, right? So giving him some soup, by giving him some matzo balls. Why? Because it's in the air. I'm not going to say everybody's like that. I'm not going to say the entire NBA's like that. God forbids, etc. It exists. There's an undercurrent. I mean, how many people said when there were, massive Jewish weddings that the Jews are spreading, Orthodox Jews are spreading COVID? Oh, isn't that racist? Oh, but it's true. Doesn't matter if it's true, right? Doesn't matter. They don't understand demographics and how close people live together and all this and how infectious it is, blah, 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 right? They don't understand that, but they're not interested. They're interested in one thing. You got higher rates. You're going to infect us. We don't want it. Is that really any different? I mean, I'm going to go on a limb here, right? But it's a good thing you're recording this. I want all the hate mail. I want people to, I want people to realize how strong this is. Isn't that what Hitler Yamach Shemo did? Isn't that what he said also? Right? His name should be blotted out. He should rot. Isn't that what he said? Jews are vermin. Jews spread disease. Right? Isn't that some of the things he said? Quoting from, of all people, Martin Luther, right? Founder of the Protestant movement, biggest anti-Semite out there. That's what Mein Kampf is based on. Anyone who doesn't know, go Google it. Right? So somebody like that, isn't that the same thing? It's like, what? You're comparing him to him, but they're saying similar things. People will make that statement, if you look in, to the bigger picture and you see, Jews are clustered where they live, and they live in smaller areas. There are a lot more people, right? They go to synagogue, go to weddings. I'm not even talking about huge weddings, whatever. So one person gets it, a lot of people can get affected. That's 100% true, right? But it doesn't mean we're out there, going against, not wearing masks if people are okay, right? That's wrong. Forget about, whether we should wear masks or not. Spoken about that. Regardless of that, there are demographics. If you look at the demographics, if you look at where Jews live, and how they live, it's understandable why the rates might be so high. But when someone says, oh, you're spreading the disease, okay, look at the bigger picture. And the numbers have dropped significantly since then, right? But still, there was another spike, okay, right? But, in the end, someone who makes a statement like that, like Mr. Cuomo, and shutting things down and, opening everything except synagogues, yeshivas, okay, churches as well, they're not getting the message, right? So they're making classic statements. Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, right? And essentially they're racist statements without looking into demographics. When you do that, what you do is you skew the truth, which, again, they're very good at doing that. They're showing one aspect of one thing, but that's, you have to see the bigger picture. And if you don't see the bigger picture, then what you're saying is basically is racist. That's what you're saying, right? So, so if we understand, now this is my point to Mr. Edelman, and that is, if you really understand anti-Semitism, and you understand what's behind it and what it's supposed to do and where it's supposed to be in the future and all that, then I'm not saying this person shouldn't be called out. I'm not saying this person shouldn't be fined. We're not giving a clean slate over here. We're not saying the person shouldn't be fined, shouldn't be punished, right? It's a racist thing. It says about Jews, blacks, doesn't matter, right? That person should be fined up the gazoo. I get it, right? That 100%. We're not saying give a clean slate, but reaching out by giving them chicken soup is nothing. They're not seeing the bigger picture because they don't want to see the bigger picture. They're not interested. And one of the things I mentioned is the fact that, and we're going to see in a second, what a person thinks, even if they don't say it, is still there. Right? In other words, if a person says something, right, we're going to go a little bit deeper here. When a person makes a knee-jerk reaction, right? Something, I don't know. The example I gave is you have a hammer in your right hand. Let's say you're building your sukkah, right? Right hammer, left thumb, whap, right? So what's the person going to do? They're going to scream in pain, but they're not just going to scream in pain. They're going to curse, right? They'll probably say every 4-letter word they know plus,
Do a
right?
dance.
But they also may make other statements, right? In other words, something may happen, and it doesn't matter where. A person could give a knee-jerk reaction. What's a knee-jerk reaction? You just say something, but you're not thinking. Right now, I'm sure this basketball player wasn't necessarily thinking, oh, I'm going to make such a racist epithet against Jews. Maybe he was. All right. I'll even give him the benefit of the doubt, even though I probably don't have to. I'm in a great mood here, okay. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, right? But there's something deeper here. There's something deeper. In other words, if a person never thought this thing, it would never come out of his mouth, ever.
Right.
In other words, it's out of mind, out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so a person says something, even if it's a knee-jerk reaction. What does that mean? It means it's in the person's psyche. It means it's already in their brain. Just because they didn't say it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? We're going to go into a lot more detail about that, but I just wanted to point that out, that this guy's like, oh, I can't believe I said it. Of course you can't believe you said it, but you did, right? You're going to say, I can't believe I didn't think it. No, you thought it, right? It was there. It's in your subconscious. And there are a lot of things in our subconscious that all the evil inclination needs is a little bit of screws to tie it tighter, tighten it, etc. And what happens? Then it can come out. Then it can manifest itself. But the bottom line is, and I'll let you ask a question here. Bottom line is, if a person never, ever thought it, then no matter what happens to that person, pain, anything else, you're never, ever going to say it. Because it's not there. It doesn't exist. If it exists at some level and it's in your subconscious, it could come out anytime, right? That is the scary part, right? And if a person's ever put under hypnosis, who knows what people will find, in their minds and their, because there are a lot of things, there are a lot of things,
corners, yeah.
There are a lot of things we don't say that
Skeletons
are deep inside.
in the closet, yeah.
It can be drawn out, put me under hypnosis, they're going to say, he really loves the CFL. And all those jokes, he didn't mean it. Doug's floating. He didn't mean it. That's why I'll never go under hypnosis, right? One of the reasons. No, but that's the point. What's deep inside of a person, right? On Purim, for instance, right? Niknas Yayin, Yotze Sod. When the wine goes in, the secrets come out. So, if a person is not going to be so careful what they're going to say, who knows what they could say, whatever. So then they shouldn't drink, because they could say all kinds of terrible things, because when a person's inebriated a little bit, you lose all self-awareness. You don't really care because you're in a different world. You're on a different planet. So what I say, what can you blame it on? You can say you were drunk, right? You can say, I drank, right? But the thing is, let's say you didn't really have that much to drink. So you're absolutely 100% aware of what you're saying. And then you cut somebody down. You make fun of them. You say whatever you want. And then in the end, what do? I didn't know what I was saying. I was out of my mind. I was drunk, right? So you're lying. They don't necessarily know that because they think you were drunk, right? But a person has to be careful, because then you have no inhibitions, right? When a person drinks, you come to my Passover Seder, who knows what comes out of my mouth? Drinking, almost a full bottle of 4 cups of wine. Imagine having eaten. This year it's not going to be that way because it comes out after Shabbos. But imagine if you don't eat most of the day, right? You're on almost an empty stomach. You make kiddush, you make over wine, right? Wine or grape juice. But, we're going to drink wine over here. 8 ounces, right? 8 ounces, in one shot. And you have to drink most of it in one shot, right? So I always ask my kids, why do you enjoy, the Seder so much? They said, what do you mean? You never eat anything during the day. You have one big cup of wine. Your eyes bug out. Your face turns red. You're yelling and screaming, different thing. I said, oh, sorry. So I digress here. You wanted to ask something.
Well, yeah, just backing it up a little bit to the anti-Semitism point.
Yeah.
I heard a rabbi really share something great this week, but um, as B'nai Noach, I mean, we're trying to develop communities, and as somebody say, I live in a real melting pot country. I mean, where you're supposed to be melting together. In reality, is you see in places like Toronto or Vancouver, you've got hotbeds where you got Chinatown and you got Greek town and you got a little Italy and you got all this. The point of the matter is, people want community, and I get that. And I heard a rabbi share on the weekend that the whole calling of the nation of Israel to be a kingdom of priests is to be a kingdom of priests is to bring them back to a family understanding from not just a nation but back to a family. And this was brought out in the early Torah from the way families became nations and the way the promises to Israel
You're
are
right.
to
So
bring them back.
yeah, so I'll address that.
But there's
because somebody-
anti-Semitic attitudes when there's that world mentality or that my country mentality or my group mentality, rather than understanding the harmony of this family. I think there's something huge
but
that needs
the
to
whole
come
base again, the whole base of anti-Semitism, just while we're on this, is it doesn't make sense. It's not rational,
No,
right?
it's not.
Because in other words,
Maladaptive.
Some anti-Semites will say that we don't like Jews because look at all the wealth and look at what they do, right? But what do you do if there's anti-Semitism where the Jews are poor, right? In other words, in one place you'll say it's this reason, but if it doesn't apply in another place, then that can't be the reason, right? You'll say, oh, the Jews were money launderers in this, they charged with tremendous interest, in this country, but in another country they didn't, right? So that can't be the reason. So when you're looking at all these different reasons, right, a lot of, once the reasons in another country don't apply, that means that can't be the reason. So essentially what you're saying is that it's 100% irrational, right? And that's pretty much what anti-Semitism is, that people will say, and it's still used, look at the Jews in Hollywood. So many Jews, imagine way back when, the Three Stooges, all these people, that's the only thing they can do. They can get into comedy, right? Way back when, they couldn't do anything else, right? So, a lot of Jews got involved in, vaudeville, and all that. So, okay. So over time, what happened? So, Jews moved into this territory. Now, even if there are a lot of Jews there, so what? We control Hollywood? Even if there are a lot of Jews there, what would happen if I said, it's not really true, because who's really controlling all these motion picture places is China, right? They're the ones funding it. China, Japan, these other places, right? You get all these other companies, let's say, whatever it is. So, why do people get away with saying that? They get away with saying it because it's irrational, right? It's totally irrational, and people, and if you would probably take a survey, right? And again, we're not talking people that are not intelligent, but if you take a survey of most people, and you were to ask them, do you think Jews have too much control in Hollywood? I think the numbers would be over 50%, easily. Over 50% people buy that. I mean, the media can sell anything. Just like, if you would ask most people today, is there such a thing as a Palestinian people and the Israelis discriminate against them? Everybody's going to say yes. Right? Most people are going to say yes, even though historically it's not true. Right? It's totally not true. Again, we're not going to get into politics. Right? So you have all these different things, and then they're calling out that certain Israelis should be put on trial for crimes against humanity, defending their own country. It's not even absurd. Beyond, it's beyond absurd. Any other country defending against terrorists, no, that's different. These are freedom fighters. They're not terrorists. So what if they're shooting rockets behind the UN school? Why do the Israelis have to blow it up? What do you mean? You're shooting using civilians as human shields. And the UN jumps up and down, and says the Israelis had no right to blow up that school. Well, where do you think the missiles were coming from, stupid? That's where a lot of them were coming from. So they blew it up, right? They blew up the UN school. So a lot of things out there, people believe, not because it's true, right? It's just once a person keeps hearing the same lie over and over and over, that lie sticks. That lie doesn't go away. Someone got in trouble. I'll give an example. Give another example, right? You probably remember this. You're old enough to remember this. You remember Jimmy the Greek. You remember Jimmy the Greek, NFL, right? So he made a statement. See, not necessarily, I wouldn't say 100% a racist statement over here, but even if it's true, they nailed him, right? What did he say? He said when it comes to swimming, right? Why do blacks don't do well in swimming events? They have bigger bone structure, etc. But you don't see blacks women in the Olympics
They didn't
or
play
whatever.
hockey for years either.
You see them in hockey and baseball and other things.
They say small ankles.
But why not in swimming?
Right.
Why not? You don't see it in swimming, right? Now his claim was, their bigger bone structure, it's harder on the water, whatever it was, that was it. He was on there for years, for 20 years, 15, 20 years, on the spot. Why? Because you can't make a statement like that, right? Even if it's true. Now, Howard Cosell got in trouble, right? He got nailed on Monday Night Football, for calling a wide receiver a little black monkey. That's worse. That is 10 times worse. And, I don't know, he said that's what he looks like out there running so fast. You can't say that, right? That's beyond.
Could you say $1 million arm, but a 10-cent head?
Something like that, yeah. So you can't, something like that, that's a racist statement, right? But, someone will say, oh, but they have big bone structure, so that's also a racist statement. I don't know that to be a racist statement. I mean, maybe people get offended by that, but that's not meant to be a racist statement. You call someone a little black monkey that is a great wide receiver and, how he goes in and out and catches the ball, whatever. Yeah, that's a heck of a lot worse. So we're not going to grasp at straws here, right? We're totally not going to grasp at straws. The point is, though, when people make statements against any nation, against any race, it's racist, right? When it comes to Jews, people can say what they want. See, Jewish blood is hefker. It's onerous. It doesn't really matter, right? So many thousands of Israelis have died, and people say, and they've been condemned more than any other nation, combined in the UN by defending their land, right? Oh, it's apartheid. You really know what apartheid is? You really know who the ones that made these people refugees? It was the UN with the Israelis. And they made them into a whole nation that didn't exist, right? I mean, it's the biggest lie next to Christianity that ever existed in the history of man. Because if you go back, when the British took over, where were the Arabs going up and, jumping up and down? Hey, they're taking over our land. We're Palestinian. Didn't exist. They didn't exist. When the Turks came before them, same thing. Do they have any entity whatsoever? Never. They're all marauders here. You have the Lebanese, you have the Transjordanians, you have the Egyptians, you have Syrians, you had all over the place. Where were the Palestinians? Where exactly were they? They had their own bank. They had their own system. Oh, really? Come on, you really research history that to be the truth? Again, so why is that lie perpetuated? Because it's easy. It's against Jews. It's against Israelis, right? They don't have to fact check over here. They can make up any dime store idea that they have and back it up with all their garbage. That's what they do, right? But everybody, again, if you would take a survey, how many people believe Israel's an apartheid state and they stole land from the Palestinians? It's a pretty darn high number, right? If you bring pro-Israeli people to speak on campuses, the left wing and the Arabs or whatever stop them from coming. I mean, it's a huge issue. What's going on in college campuses today, right? So why can't they, the left wing and everyone else has the right to speak, to do what they want. You want to try and get out the truth a little bit? Can't do it, right? So where's the open-mindedness? Where's the open-minded? Because they hate Jews. They hate Israel, right? I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying across the board, right? But anti-Semitism's alive and well. It doesn't have to make any sense, right? Being anti-Israel in the UN is, of course, because they're, you got the Arabs there, you got all these European countries don't want Israel, don't like Israel and all that. Okay, doesn't mean it's true. I mean, anyone who's ever fought a land, I mean, if they ever fought for land and, they won land, whoever had to give land back in a defensive war? Nobody.
Yeah, no one.
Nobody. I saw a political cartoon. Someone said, yeah, before Israel gives back the land, America has to give back California, New Mexico,
Texas,
Texas and Arizona to the Mexicans. They have to give back Florida to the Spaniards, and then they have to give back all the land they stole from the Indians. Once they do that, then Israel can give back land. But that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So you can say, Israel's the big bully. You're right. We're the big bully. Come take the land back. You want to come take the land back? Come get it. Right? A bully against a wimp is always going to win. Most times. How's the wimp going to beat up the bully? He's going to work out, this, that. And if he beats up the bully ain't going to bother him anymore. So you want to get us off the land? So we have an easy answer. Right? The Torah says at the beginning, Breshis bara Elokim eza shamayim ve'eza haaretz. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. God gave us the heaven and the earth. Rashi, others asked the question, why don't we start with book of Exodus chapter 12? Books of Exodus chapter 12, first mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? Rosh Chodesh, right? It's the mitzvah today because it's the new month of Nisan, right? So we read that in the Torah today from Exodus chapter 12. So everyone asked, so why didn't they start with that? Why didn't the Jewish people start with that mitzvah? Why didn't the Torah start with that mitzvah? Because the world has to understand God's the one who created the world. God's the one in charge, right? So it's an answer to the nations because, hey, they stole our land. The Jews stole our land, right? So you say Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. They don't have a claim. They have zero claim. Why do they have zero claim? Because God giveth, God taketh away. And if he wanted you to have it, you would have it. If you're not meant to have it, you're not going to. No, so these whiners, these poor little wusses in my language, these whiners are going, hey, you stole our land. Hey, you stole our land. Come get it. Bring it on, right? We have nuclear weapons. Come on. Take it back. Now, if we don't deserve to have the land, okay, right? But in any other nation in the world, they took over land. Who gave it back? Okay, you had the English. They took over, they did all kinds of colonization, in Africa. Okay, eventually these places they left, these places. Okay, right? But it wasn't their land, right? Totally wasn't their land. They took it over, right? This land belonged to us. How do I know it belonged to us? Because the Torah tells me. Now, a non-Jew of any of the nations, that get taken over, they're going to say, hey, what do I care God gave the Torah or not? It's our land. But you're missing the point. If it was supposed to be your land, God would give it to you. But if you don't deserve it, in my language, it says at the end of the book of Leviticus that if the Jews don't do what we're supposed to do, we'll get thrown out of the land, right? So in my language, chump don't want it, chump don't get it. That's it, right? If we don't deserve it, we're not going to be here. There is a medrash that says when the Messiah comes, the Jews aren't going to be in the land. That God is going to have to bring the Jews, they're going to be thrown in the desert, whether you take that literally or not, right? The whole discussion, right? But seemingly the Jews are not going to be in the land. Now, it's a little bit hard to understand, especially what's going on today. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna be here. Regardless of all that, either you believe the Torah is true, or not. But if you really deserve the land, now there's a whole question. My question really is, why would that be an answer to the non-Jewish nations? In other words, you're going to quote the Bible. Right? You're going to tell them God created the heaven and the earth. You're going to go, nah, 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 nah. God created the heaven and the earth. Right? God created the heaven and the earth. So if God created the heaven and the earth, he's got a right. He can give it and take it to whoever he wants. Right? He can give this land to somebody else, take this land, whatever. He can do whatever he wants. Now, if God says, well, the Jewish people deserve the land, it could be one day maybe we don't deserve the land. God forbid, he'll take it away. Right? But if you really want the land, you really think it belongs to you, so then you have an obligation to try and take it back. But the question to them, they're not going to look at. They're going to say, what do I care what the Bible says? What do I care? You quote the first verse, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, right? Big deal. I don't believe in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Okay, so why do I have to give the land back then? My answer would be, if we took over the land, you deserve not to have it. So why did I give it back? And it was a defensive war. Why do I have to give land back? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, I don't believe in the Bible. On the other hand, I deserve the land. Why do you deserve the land? If you're going to tell me it's because of the Bible, right. If God wants you to have the land, you have it. But if you don't believe in the Bible, then there's only one other alternative. You have to go to war against us. You have to beat us and take us out of the land. And if you can't do that, well, I would go like this. Nah, it's too bad. It's our land. And it's over. Right? You want to come get it. Right? So they don't have a claim over here. But again, the lie gets perpetuated. Right? We're just someone, again, playing some stupid video game, whatever it was. And, how much contact does this guy really have with Jews? Probably not. I probably would venture, probably not too much. Right? Probably not too much. But, where does he know that vocabulary? He knows it. Right? He knows racist statements. I'm sure he's got plenty of things to say against blacks also, which he probably wouldn't do because most of the people he's playing with are black. Right? So he's not going to get caught doing that. They'll kill him. Right? Oh, say something against Jews. Okay. But it's only coming from ignorance. This is what so this is what Edelman's saying. What do you say? You don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know what Jews are. You don't even know what they represent. Well, Mr. Edelman, no offense, you don't know anything. You probably can't even read Hebrew. So what are you telling him? You don't know anything about Jews. What do you do exactly that's Jewish? Besides eating maybe a little bit of gefilte fish and having some matzo balls. Nothing. You don't do anything. Right? So if you don't do anything, what are you going to show him, right? What are you going to show an anti-Semite? Oh, that's the answer. I'm never going to be an anti-Semite again because the Jews are great. I don't think so. Right? I'm still waiting for an answer from him, but I can't imagine. I did reach out to him. I am going to say. I did reach out to him. I know they saw what I said to him. We'll see if they answer. Right? I can't imagine. Can't imagine they're going to answer. But I made it clear. What are you going to give this guy? He's not going to be an anti-Semite anymore. Right? So, back to our point, what we say has to be clear. There can be no doubts.
Right.
Right? We don't want somebody, in this case in Torah, that someone's going to make a mistake and it's going to lead them down the path of being a heretic. Now, what this other person did about saying how much this person was charging for, these videos about Noahides or these this or whatever, again, something like that, what's the implication? Even though probably didn't mean it, right? I'm going to cut him some slack. I don't think he meant it, right? But what it could be meant is people shouldn't charge. It's forbidden for a Jew to charge money, to teach Torah, even though it's permissible other educational courses to charge. It's permissible. So your washing machine broke, got to get it fixed. Your car broke, whatever, you got to pay for it, whatever, even though they probably charge you an arm and a leg, whatever it is, okay, right? So why is this any different? It's cognitive dissonance. I shouldn't have to do it. But the mistake that's made is what they're saying is misleading, even if that's not what they mean. And the problem is, if you do that in social media, and let's say someone took offense to this, and someone said, "Oh, you're slandering me," right? You are, saying something bad, negative, could affect, what I'm doing or whatever. It's like, no, that's not what I meant, or whatever. But in the end, it caused damage, potentially caused damage. So I told this person that when you put something out, even if someone wants to misinterpret it, that's their choice. But you have to make it squeaky clean. You have to make sure from all sides no one's ever going to misinterpret. And if they misinterpret themselves, that's not your fault, right? But if they do misinterpret, right, and then people are going to, say things to other people, let's say like me, say, "Oh, how could you do this? Look what this person said." So what does that do? That makes me look bad, right? Obviously, that wasn't the intention, right? So that was a very hot topic, so we did. We did a controversial issue on it. It was a good topic. It was a very good topic. So that is one explanation. Now, the second explanation is what we mentioned before. Now we're going to sort of delve into it a little bit. Second explanation is you don't reveal a secret even to yourself. You don't reveal it to yourself and say, oh, no one's going to know about it. No one's going to hear about it. Why? Because what can happen? In the end, it can be revealed. Why? It can be revealed because even though it's in your mind, you haven't told anybody, right? One of the commentaries points out it can be revealed because the birds can take it and give it over to others.
Bird of the air, yeah.
Now, it's like, so you're going to say, what do you mean? What do you mean? What does this mean exactly? We know that King Solomon and there were great rabbis, in the Talmud that understood the language of birds. Now, we don't necessarily understand the language of the birds or maybe other animals because, again, I haven't played, Dr. Doolittle ever, right? So, I talk with the animals, but, of course, there's always a but, and that is that way back when there are people that could, that could understand, what the birds say and all that. But even if we're not going to take it at that level, it means, and this is very, very hard to understand. It means that a person shouldn't even think these type of things. Why? Because if you think about them, it's only a matter of time before it gets revealed. Now let that sink in for a second. You're going to say, okay, it's in my mind. It's in my mind, and no one's ever going to know about it. No one's ever going to know about it. Now, let's make a big jump here. Maybe this is what this basketball player has been thinking all along. And really, he's a true anti-Semite. Nothing to talk about, but he never said it to anybody. Why didn't he? Maybe he did, but let's say for argument's sake, he never said it to anyone. If he never said it to anyone, no one's ever going to know. He's really a closet anti-Semite. He never wrote about it on social media. He didn't do anything. Oh, what happened? All of a sudden, something gets triggered in his mind, playing this video game. It's going live. Bam, he says, oh, I can't believe this kike. What happened? What happened over here? How could it be? This person said it.
Out. Yeah.
Wow, slip of the tongue. No. This Mishnah comes to tell you there is no such thing as slip of the tongue. What that means is it's something you shouldn't have said at the time you said it. That is true, right? But what that really means is it was really in my mind. And the fact that it was really in my mind that God says over here, and we learn out over here, that that's the worst place it could be. Because at some point, you know what they say? What goes around comes around. Meaning that if it's in my mind, even I haven't told anybody, right? I haven't written it anywhere, right? There'll be people that'll be very sneaky. They have certain things they don't want anyone to know or whatever. They won't put it on social media. They won't put it in a video. They won't write it down. There'll be no trace, right? They will, kind of like, history on your browser.
People hide things, yeah.
You don't want to see someone to see certain things. Go to the history, erase it, right? It doesn't exist, right? But if you're supposed to get caught, you'll get caught. So over here, it boggles the mind because the fact that it's in your mind, you would tell me it's safe. Now, if you're somebody like me, it's got a big mouth. If it's in my mind, it better stay there. No matter how much I drink. No matter how much I drink ever, it should stay there. Right? But even if someone doesn't have a big mouth, if it's in their mind, it doesn't mean it's not going to come out. Now, I think this guy was probably shocked out of his gourd that he got caught saying it. Right? I don't think he's so shocked that he thought it.
Oh, Rabbi, a lot of times in my life, I've probably, maybe just spoken things that shouldn't have been said, but, had to live through it and go through something because once it's in you, I guess you got to go through something.
Even a knee-jerk reaction, right? A knee-jerk reaction, and a person says, oh, I never should have said it, right? But you can't take it back.
Nope.
Right? So, no, I can't believe I said it. So what does this Mishnah come and tell you? And this is going to probably make you shave the rest of the hair you have on your head. And that is that I should never, ever think these things. These things, even though you're not going to get punished for your thoughts, only by a few things, by immorality or by idolatry, right? Even if I don't act on it, I could get punished for it. But just about everything else, we say Devarim Shebalev Eino Devarim. Words in my heart don't mean anything. So over here, okay, doesn't matter what I think. I can think this, that, and the other thing. I can think any racist thought I want. Technically, there's nothing wrong with it, as long as I don't say it. But if you're at a higher level, what I think also, even in these type of things, is going to be bad because it's not good for your soul, right? So I'm going to think about this, right? But in this case, what do we have to say? We have to say that anything like this that comes out, even if a person says, oh, I shouldn't have said it, or, this person's not sensitive. That's clear, right? That 100% is clear, right? But it doesn't mean that's not what he thinks, right? He didn't come out and say, oh, Jews are great people.
I didn't say that.
He's not coming out. He's not coming out and saying that, right? He's saying, yeah, I should, whatever. Got to be more careful. I shouldn't have said it. It's a terrible thing. But okay, put him on a lie detector test. Hook him up, and and ask him, what do you think about Jewish people? Ask him. Come on, Jules. Julian Edelman, go ask him. Put him on a lie detector test. He's going to tell you to go shove the matzo ball. That's what he's going to tell you, right? Because that's what he believes. That's what I think he believes, right? Now you're going to say, come on, that's radical. Again, maybe what are you saying? Is a neo-Nazi? No, I'm not going that far. I'm not going to go that far, right? Is he a lover of Jews? I don't think so, right? By what he said, he's not a lover of Jews. Because anytime, and this is the depth of the Mishnah here. Anytime a person says something like that or has these thoughts, they are going to come out. Now, why do you have these thoughts? Right? Why does the person have these thoughts in general? It could be the media. It could be social media. It could be you saw something, you heard something, whatever. But you don't think this person believes it? Come on, Hitler, again, he convinced the masses. He convinced the masses that Jews are vermin and all that. But who were the masses he convinced first? Who were the first ones to sign up? Right? They weren't the neo-Nazis of today. He was signing up the intelligentsia. They signed up willingly. Doctors, lawyers, psychologists. These weren't dummies.
Yeah.
These weren't people that had 30 IQs. Yeah. Right? This was the cream of the crop. Germany was well ahead of America in many things at that time. Right? America wasn't number one country over here. Right? They had a lot of intelligentsia there. Nothing to talk about. Right? So he said, oh, someone put a gun to your head, they would do, you would do anything. It's not true. You didn't put a gun to anyone's head. Right? I've mentioned before, there's a great book called Hitler's Willing Executioners. It's about a 600-page book. He didn't put a gun to their head. They came voluntarily. Why? So how could these people be so intelligent? How could they be so intelligent and do the most heinous crimes ever? Because they believed it was true. They absolutely believed it was true. Right now, you can be a great orator, right? You can be, an unbelievable speaker, but again, someone has to buy in. Someone has to drink the Kool-Aid and say, I absolutely believe this is true. Now, you have to understand, Jews were totally intermarried at that point, right? There's a high amount of intermarriage and assimilation. Now, I'm not going to say that's the only reason for the Holocaust. One reason, no question, right? But they were so entrenched in society, they couldn't understand what they were doing. What do you mean? We fought in your wars. We went to your ball games, right? We married your women, right? So Hitler said, I don't care, you're Jewish. You have Jewish blood, father, mother, I don't care. We're going to kill all of you, right? We're going to destroy all of you. And the answer is that they couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense because they're like everybody else, right? So what do I always say? One of the things I always say is that the Jews don't make Kiddush Friday night. The non-Jews make Havdalah, right? What is Havdalah? It's the service that ends Shabbos. You have a candle, you have spices, you have grape juice, and you make the blessing, Hamadil ben Kodesh L'chol, that you distinguish between the holy and everyday, right? So what does Havdalah really mean? To distinguish. So here the Jews aren't making Kiddush. They're all assimilating out. They're all intermarrying. Now, I don't think Mr. Edelman makes Kiddush. If he does, I'd like to hear about it. But I can't imagine he does. So when you don't make Kiddush and you don't care about Judaism, the non-Jews are going to let you know. The non-Jews are going to remind you that you're Jewish, right? I've heard people say that, there's a lot of infighting amongst Jews. That's true, right? Amongst Orthodox Jews. That's 100% true. It's unfortunate, but there is, right? So someone made a statement, or they were talking about Jews in general, but someone made the statement says, yeah, we need a lot more anti-Semitism. It's going to bring the Jews together. We don't need a lot more anti-Semitism.
No.
We need to go back and do what we need to do properly, right? If we don't serve God properly, the non-Jews are going to tell us, and they're going to make us feel different. Doesn't matter how Jewish you dress. Doesn't matter, all these other things. The vast majority of people are intermarrying. They're assimilating. I just saw an amazing thing over Shabbos. And my Rebbe says in this week's parsha spoke about, building the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and the importance of Shabbos, right? So in the name of the Brisker Rav Yisrael Zev Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, he said the following. He said, why is it that secular Jews are much more stringent about Yom Kippur than they are about Shabbos? If a person desecrates Shabbos in public, they have the status of a non-Jew. If there was a temple in existence today in Jerusalem, they'd get killed, right? They would be spiritually cut off. If they transgress Yom Kippur, they get spiritually cut off. They don't get killed, right? The punishment's not as severe. So the Brisker Rav asked the question, what happened over here? Most Jews, right, even secular Jews, Yom Kippur means something. It does, but whether they fast or not doesn't matter. But it means something. Not Rosh Hashanah, not Shabbos, nothing else except Yom Kippur, right? So the Brisker Rav asked the question, why Yom Kippur? Why Yom Kippur of all things? Why not Shabbos? So the Brisker Rav said, when secular Jews see Jews on Yom Kippur and they see the fear of God on their face, right? Because it's a tremendous day to feel like an absolute piece of dirt, right? And we're begging for forgiveness. So God's not going to zap us, and that we should have another year of life. We have to work hard to, keep ourselves alive. So the Jews see the fear. The secular Jews see the fear, of Orthodox Jews on Yom Kippur, but they don't see the fear on Shabbos. And the reality is, we should also have fear on Shabbos. So Rebbe told the story of the Shatzer Rebbe of blessed memory in England. He had, some sort of connection to him. And he said he was in such fear of Shabbos. Now in England, you have to understand, in the summer, Shabbos goes out very late. Sundown can be like after 10 o'clock, right? In the summertime, in the heat of the summer, even later. So he said he was so afraid. He was so afraid of sin and anything else that once he ate the afternoon meal, right, he would learn straight till sundown, right? In other words, he finished his meal, let's say by 2 o'clock or whatever it was. And he said he learned straight till 10 o'clock. Straight, didn't take a break. I mean, okay, maybe a bathroom break here, there, whatever. But he didn't take a break for 8 hours based on the fear, right? So you're going to say, okay, how many people are holding there? The Brisker Rav said if we would show any type of fear on Shabbos, or if we, God forbid, we see someone break Shabbos and it doesn't affect us, and we don't want to scream out because God's name's being desecrated over here, that means Shabbos is not that important to us. And so secular Jews see Shabbos in some ways is like every day. And if they see it's like every day and they don't see the fear of heaven, then why are they going to keep it? Right? It's not going to have the same influence as Yom Kippur. That's the difference, because on Yom Kippur, they see the fear, right? They absolutely see the fear. Shabbos, they don't see the fear. And because of Shabbos, they don't see the fear, they're not affected in the same way as they are by Yom Kippur. Question.
Just to back it up a little bit, did I hear you say that, because we're talking about clarity here.
No.
Did I hear you say that you think you hold that the non-Jewish people, especially B'nai Noach, should be practicing Havdalah?
No.
Okay, I wanted clarification.
What I said was that if the Jews do not make Kiddush, right? Again, it's a parable here, right? The non-Jews are going to make Havdalah, not literally. I said Havdalah means to distinguish.
Right.
They are going to tell you and distinguish and say, and persecute you and all that because you're not keeping what you're supposed to keep.
Okay.
Now, they're not doing it because of that. They're just doing it because God's using them like a stick. Say, oh, you don't want to make Kiddush, right? Mr. Edelman, you're not going to make Kiddush. Maybe you will, right? But if you don't make Kiddush, what makes you Jewish, for goodness sake? Right? What character trait over here is going to distinguish you between Jews and non-Jews? I'll tell another story. I got a lot of stories. Tell another story, right? It's good for Saturday night. That's what they say when you have the fourth meal. You're supposed to tell like Hasidic Maisim, Hasidic stories. So, okay, this isn't exactly a Hasidic story. Where's my guitar? Start playing my guitar now. Led Zeppelin. Anyway, I don't want to digress here. See, I've had a little bit of tea, not even caffeinated, right? But the point is, story, right? So every year, ever since I was a kid, that, in April, middle of April, they had the famous Boston Marathon, right? I grew up in Boston. Most people know.
Yep.
So they had the Boston Marathon, and I just heard someone put up a post saying that, the person who, the Boston Marathon bomber is going to get this.
Was it 2013, was that?
It was 2018, I think. 2013, yeah, 2013 maybe. It was 2013. And what happened? He's getting a stipend in jail. Mr. Biden's going to give him a stipend if it's true. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, I don't even want to go down that path. But the point was, I used to go, every year. I used to go with my father, and good friends of theirs, would be at like the 20-mile mark, what they would call Heartbreak Hill, right? Someone had a house there. He would stand out there and, cheer for them. Bill Rogers, remember Bill Rogers? Whatever, way back when, people would cheer and whatever, give out water. There's one year, some woman needed to use the bathroom, right? So they let her use the bathroom. Would have been exciting. Anyway, I digress. But the point is, I was there with my wife. I think I was engaged. And we went to the marathon. And one of the things that my wife had mentioned was here, you couldn't tell the Jews from the non-Jews. In other words, not by the race, right? By these friends of my father, there were people there, and they couldn't tell the Jews from the non-Jews, right? In other words, we have specific clothing that we wear, right? Someone's going to wear yarmulke, you wear,
clear in New York.
Person's going to wear a black hat, a coat, this, whatever it is, right? But if you can't tell the difference, if you're just dressing like everybody else, right? What distinguishes you from non-Jews? I eat gefilte fish. That'll scare any non-Jew. What? I eat gefilte fish. That makes me different? They're like, come on. People say you're a fanatic. You're this. What does that have to do with anything? Because, what are you saying? I'm not Jewish? No. If your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. But what distinguishes you between everyone else? Right? What makes you Jewish? Because you're born to a Jewish mother? But what else do you do that's Jewish? I go to synagogue once in a while. Okay. Right? Man, I have a Passover Seder. I eat a little bit of matzah. Okay. Is that enough to perpetuate Judaism? I would think no. Right? But this is something that's like it jars at people because, again, I don't think this guy Edelman does that very many things that are Jewish. I could be wrong. Right? And hopefully I'll be called out that I'm totally wrong. Right? But if what distinguishes you between you and any non-Jew? Probably nothing. You hang out with them, you play with them, you probably play on Shabbos, which I'm sure you do, even though you're not Jewish, so it doesn't matter, right? But what distinguishes you? Listen, Sandy Koufax made a big thing. He didn't pitch on Yom Kippur. Okay, right? But he pitched on Shabbos, I'm sure, right? And Shabbos is worse than Yom Kippur. I'm not saying that's not a statement. It is an amazing thing not to pitch in a World Series game on Yom Kippur. No question about it. That is an impressive thing. But what about playing on Shabbos? Shabbos is 10 times worse than Yom Kippur, right? All year round. What about all the games you played on Shabbos? Okay, I'm not going to call them out here, right? But again, the point of all this and why I bring these things up is I want people to understand what they see and what the Torah perspective is, right? Some people say, just leave this guy alone. I understand why he did it. He wanted to reach out to him. He doesn't want to be an anti-Semite. He wants people, he wants them to think goodly of Jews. I get it. They'll have a dinner. Very nice. Show you some matzo balls. Why are you hammering him? Why in the world are you hammering him? I'm hammering him because I want people to understand this is not Judaism over here, right? Reaching out, you want to give them something, explain to them what Shabbos is. Explain to them the beauty of what being a Jew is. But you can't do that because you don't know anything about Judaism. You can't even read the Bible. You can't read Hebrew, right? So the best you can do is we're going to eat together, which is forbidden really for Jews and non-Jews in many ways to eat together, right? Because of what it could lead to and friendship and intermarriage and all that. But without even getting into that, right? What's behind? What's behind this whole thing? How am I supposed to view it? And most people are going to say, what are you, a fanatic? What are you coming out against this poor person? You know, he likes to play football. He wants to call this person out. He wants them to do the right thing. I get it. You know, I do understand where he's coming from. But that's not the Torah perspective. The Torah perspective is, yeah, he has to be called out, right? This anti-Semite has to be called out. And he should be fined and all that, right? But what are you going to do practically? Right now, Robert Kraft, president, you know, is the president of the New England Patriots, every year, you know, takes a bunch of football players to Israel, right, to get them to see the land. That's a huge thing, right? That is a huge thing to get, you know, to get them to see the land, you know, meet Israelis, you know, different things. You know, okay, I'm not necessarily going to call him out, but you know, that is something, right? You know, that is a positive thing, right? You know, if you think about it, I mean, I think there are better things to do, but you know, that is a positive thing. Edelman's also come, right? He's also been to Israel a few times, right? But, you know, how see, according to Judaism, the problem is, how are you going to bridge that gap? How are you going to bridge that gap between Jews or non-Jews without watering it down, right? Without giving them something real, right? That's my beef over here, right? My beef is, I don't care what he says because they don't have anything to offer. It's all about friendship. It's all about camaraderie, right? You know, it's all about showing them Jews aren't so bad. But that's not the answer to anti-Semitism. That's not the answer. Showing the land of Israel, okay, right? They're going to see the land, this, that. You don't think some of them are going to think that, you know, we occupy the land? You think they're going to get a balanced view of what it is? I don't think so. They're going to go speak to Orthodox rabbis what Judaism really is, what the land really means? No, I doubt it. You know, Kraft's not really that religious. Okay, right? I'm not going to sit here and hammer them, but the point is, you have to give something real. If you don't give something real and you don't understand what the basis of anti-Semitism is, and you don't understand that it's never going to change till the Messiah comes, right? You have to call these people out, for sure, right? You can't have this in this world, right? You can't have racism. Right? Any type of racism. So the person should be fine
in general.
Look at that's all true. Right? But now, how are you going to combat it? Yeah. Giving someone gefilte fish, showing them the land of Israel, I don't know. That is not a Torah approach. Right? You know, not at all. Right? You have to show them the warmth, 100%. But again, it cannot be something fake. You have to show them what it is. You have to get them to understand, right? All I need is 5 minutes with Edelman explain Esav hates Yaakov, you know, and that's it. That's the answer. You're never going to convince this guy, but go deeper. Go deeper. Why did this guy say it? Don't tell him, I'll invite you down with a bunch of buddies. You know, we'll do Shabbat. We'll have a Shabbat meal. Well, isn't that beautiful? But you don't get it. You don't get the message, right? And the message is, ask the person, you know, got to be a little more sensitive, you know, etc. But what did we just explain? We explained that when someone thinks something, it becomes part of their psyche. And even if there's a fight between the evil inclination, no, I shouldn't think this, it's wrong, you know, etc. At some point, the evil inclination is going to push a few buttons, and someone's going to make a statement they should never, ever say. And they'll regret, right? And they may regret for the rest of their life, right? But if a person never thought it, they would never say it, right? So now you ask this guy, okay, I understand, maybe it was a slip of the tongue, right? I am in somewhat of a generous mood, right? So maybe I'll cut you some slack.
Thank you.
But I bet you really think that. Right? Now you start asking him questions. Put him on a lie detector test. Ask him, do you think Jews control the media? Do you think Israel's an apartheid state? Do you think, we've stolen the land? Etc. Ask about 10 very strong questions and see what this guy is going to answer. And I guarantee you, right? I'll put my name on the line. As my name is Chaim Coffman, I will say right now, live that we're recording it, I guarantee you, right? 8 or 9 out of these 10 things are going to show this person is an anti-Semite. Period. Across the board. I don't have any doubts in my mind because no one's going to think such a thing and not think other things. You're not going to say, no, I don't, if someone says such a statement, such a racist statement, he's going to believe the Jews belong in Israel? No, I don't think so. Is he going to believe, that we don't control Hollywood? I don't think so. A lot of people think that, right? Certainly a lot of people think that. So you go down the list of a number of these questions, check, mate, right? That's what it's going to be. That is what's going to be. And again, I'll put my name on the line here because, someone doesn't think that one thought. He doesn't think anything else. It's not just a slip of the tongue. See, this is the problem. It's not just a slip of the tongue. It's there. It's part of your psyche. It's something you really believe. It's just you were foolish to get it out there, right? You were foolish that someone was recording, right? And there's some football players and others done stupid things in the offseason, lost their big payday, never played again, right? Okay, you got to be careful what you do, what you say, right? But what we say is a manifestation of what's in our mind. If it's a manifestation and what's in our minds that, oh, I can't believe I said that. No. See, this is what we're learning tonight, a huge novelty here. You can't say, I didn't mean to say it. You can say, I shouldn't have said it. It shouldn't have got out there, right? But
what about limited dialogue, Rabbi? People with
limited dialogue. It's something in your mind. Now, it could be in 20 years, it's never going to, it doesn't come out. But at a certain point, let's say it ends up coming out. So what does that tell you 20 years prior? What that tells you 20 years prior is at some point it was there. It was part of your mind. It just never came out. Maybe you told other people, hush, hush. It didn't get in the media. It didn't get on video. You didn't get caught saying it. But doesn't mean he didn't believe it. Why'd he say it? You could have said any other 4-letter word, right? You could have said any other curse, swear, whatever. But you could have said a million different things. You didn't have to say that, right? Or, a person makes racist epithets against blacks or Koreans or whatever when they're upset. Why are they saying that when they're upset? And then they get caught and say, oh, it's a terrible thing I said. You're right, it's a terrible thing you said, right? But I'm asking the question based on the Mishnah over here, where did it come from? What we're saying is it didn't come out of a vacuum. It didn't come out of nowhere, right? It doesn't matter if 20, 30 years it never said anything. And all of a sudden it came out, slip of the tongue. There is no such thing as slip of the tongue, right? In other words, if a person never thought it, he's never going to say it.
Right.
He's never going to say it. So you don't have an excuse. You don't have an excuse and say, well, first of all, you can't say I didn't say it. Second of all, you can't say, well, I never thought it. That you're never going to be able to say. Why? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wrote several books, Rabbi, but, I had one whole chapter, and I did make a comment about along the similar lines that, like, even free will cannot choose what it doesn't know exists, right? If it doesn't know the options there, it doesn't know a selection, but
he's not going to choose it.
He can't. It just doesn't exist. You're limited to what you know, and I like the way you're putting this here.
So comes on the Rambam, and the Rambam says that we don't learn if a person's not clear that it's necessarily going to lead to heresy, but rather their words should not be able to be misinterpreted in a way that's far away from what the person meant, right? Again, person has to be extremely careful and clear of exactly what they meant so it can't be misinterpreted. So therefore, if a person should say something, they have to say it in such a clear way There are no other possible interpretations, right? All the more so people that teach, right? So if somebody teaches and what they're teaching is confusing and the students won't have any clarity, then obviously there should be no point. Why? In other words, if a person wants their students to understand, they want to make it clear in such a way there is no confusion. Now, it doesn't mean they reveal everything that they think, right? We saw that before, right? They don't necessarily reveal everything to the student. They let the student, think for themselves, etc. But, and let them come to their own conclusions and different things. But whatever we give over, it has to be clear.
For sure.
Because in essence, if it's not clear, you won't be able to give it over. But it has to be clear enough.
Transmit if you're not.
It has to be right. It has to be clear enough where the person themselves, is not going to misinterpret. Now, if it is clear, we said before, if it is clear and they misinterpret it, it's not your fault, right? You are no way at fault over here.
If you spit it out clearly.
Yeah, the point is, though, if you're a teacher, it should not be confusing, right? And there were people out there, there's still people out there teaching Noahides that don't make any sense.
Yeah, especially,
it doesn't make sense. Yeah. I know somebody went to hear someone speak, and I told them, I warned them, whatever. They came out more confused than they went in. And I said, of course, because the person himself doesn't understand. If he understood what he said, then a person's not going to get confused, right? If a person speaks at above the level of the people that they're teaching, then what's the point? No one's going to understand. But again, like we said at the beginning, I see people quoting all kinds of things in Kabbalah, and for goodness sakes, if they want to learn revealed Torah, let them learn a heck of a lot more before they go into that, before they start quoting things. And
there are matters that are just always beyond our capability.
No, but people think I have a right, just like you have a right. I have a right to learn whatever I want, and I can do what I want. And there are some Noahides out there. I want to make clear you're out of your league. Gemara, Talmud is out of your league if you don't have a teacher. Not that you should be learning it.
Or even if you don't know Hebrew.
Forget to learn Hebrew. You need a proper teacher.
Right.
You can have it in English, right? Art Scroll is very good translation. Very, very good translation, but you need someone to teach you. You can't just learn it on your own, right? Not only that, you have to have humility, which a lot of these people also don't have. They're not going to listen to people like me. Oh, what do what do you know? Do you study Kabbalah? No, I don't. Right? Because I'm not ready to study Kabbalah. A little bit here and there, but, everyone we're going to see one day in the next 100 years, if I live that long, that you have to know your place, right? You have to have humility, right? And if you barely know Hebrew, I don't care about translation. Why are you studying something that's well beyond you? Go through plenty of Torah philosophy. Go through plenty of Talmud, even though I tell you it's forbidden, right? Go through things that you have to go through before you get there, right? Once you learn all that, the code of Jewish law, you've gone through a tremendous amount of Torah. That's a different thing, right? But, I see it quite often. People quote things, say things, and it's unfortunate because, I don't think these people are evil to be evil. I think they certainly have the right intention, right? And this goes even further because, the person that taught them was a wacko, was 100% a wacko, right? He didn't learn that long under anybody. Certainly doesn't have, this person's out to lunch anyway. No one holds by him now anyway. But, if your teacher is cracked, so to speak, and he himself never properly learned, what's that going to say about everyone else that's learning under him? Nothing.
Well, we can learn from children, though. We can learn from children. We can learn from flowers.
Yeah. You can also learn from an imbecile. That's what you're going to get, right? And that's what it's caused. That's exactly what it's caused. So now you got these illegitimate children, quote unquote, who they push this teacher out. Doesn't really matter, right? But, they claim they have their own thing and blah, blah, blah. It's like the blind leading the blind. That's what it is. And yeah, me and a bunch of other people, came out, condemned them, condemned this person, whatever, and they condemned us. How dare you say this and that? Okay, person's got no credentials, zero credentials. What he's saying is distorting Torah to a major degree, so it's dangerous. 100% it's dangerous because people think it's the real thing. And people think, I'm going to be this absolute super Noahide. I'm going to do this and do that, and, you're just not bold enough to say we're right. No, it's not a question about being bold enough. This generation's not worthy of it. You're not worthy of it. No, it's wrong. There's a difference. It's wrong. And nobody backs it. No great rabbinical authority backs it. So if nobody backs it, doesn't, what do I care? It's wrong. Right? And it should not be perpetuated. Not only that, people should learn that you can't learn from such a person. You absolutely forget about the character traits. That's a whole different issue. Right? But, if the thing is fraudulent and you point out where it's fraudulent, right? What's the response? What was this idiot's response? You don't know how to learn. You don't know how to learn. Now, people can say a lot of things about me, and I got big shoulders. One thing no one's going to say is either I don't know how to learn or I don't have credentials. Right? That's a little bit offensive. That's a little bit offensive. I've been working for 30 years. My refugee's one of the Torah giants. I don't have to answer to anyone. I have to answer to him and God, right? Really, God and him, right? And I owe a lot to both, no question about it. Probably more to God. But anyway, I'm not going to go down there, right? But this is something where anyone comes to my blog, he's there. He's mentioned. He's one of the Torah giants. There's nothing to talk about. Now, you want to come out, and attack that? So, okay, I have to draw the line. So someone's going to say, okay, the person's a crackpot. Why waste your time? You're right? And I made a blasting video once about it, or a number of times. And in the end, what bothers me is that if you have no credentials, you don't have what to say.
Right.
You don't have what to say. You can disagree with me in other things, philosophical things, you want to be proofs, this, that. Can't say I don't have credentials. Right? Can't say what I'm not saying is true. You can argue, fine. Right? But when you say it's my way, the highway, and you say it doesn't matter what you think, you don't know how to learn. Rabbi Singer doesn't know how to learn. He's not bold enough to say, what I have to say. Really? He's been a counter missionary for like 40 years. You want to tell me he doesn't know what he's doing? Rabbi Skobach, same thing. Been out there for years. You want to tell me these people don't know how to learn Torah?
I love Rabbi Skobach.
That's called heresy. That's called not showing respect for Torah scholars. Now, I'm not as old as them, right? And I found out, interesting enough, Rabbi Skobach is a lot older than me, and I look like his father. So I don't know exactly. So I look a lot older, but I don't know exactly how that works out. But in either case, even if you disagree with somebody, as long as they're not a heretic, you have to show respect. Yeah. And these two people have been at the forefront. One second. They've been at the forefront for years in counter missionary work. It's one thing you say, no, that's not what it means in Isaiah. No, it's not what it means over here, or, whatever. But they're calling them out in a sense where, no, they're not really true Jews. They don't really, what this person said, which, which infuriated me. And, again, if someone's in a straitjacket, and someone's an imbecile, what are you going to argue with? That's true, right? But in the end, when someone says, you put your whole life, you put your whole kishkit, your whole inside, to learning and tearing apart the Talmud left and right for years, day in and day out for years. And then this person comes along and says, no, sorry, you don't know how to learn. That's offensive. Right? First of all, it's not only showing respect, right? That's just downright offensive, right? So again, if the person's a crackpot, shouldn't get offended at all. But, even for myself, I've worked very hard. I have a long way to go. Plenty want to learn. No question about it. But I've scraped and I've bled and I've, lost sleep and this
you sat
and that.
In courts for years
no
too,
one's going to say. No one is going to say, and I'm not going to let them get away with it. Not only say you don't have credentials, right? But no, you don't know how to learn. No, that's well below the belt. Now, if someone's been in yeshiva for like a month, which is Bozo has been, right? Never learned under anybody. And he's been in yeshiva for a month. Come on. I'm going to sit there and argue with him? No, I'm not going to argue with you, right? And I shouldn't waste my time. I shouldn't even waste this time, right? But I want people to understand that the Talmud says clear. I mentioned this a number of times. That the Talmud says clear in Chagiga 15a, I think it's 15a, it says that your rabbi in your eyes has to be like an angel.
Like an angel.
Now, it doesn't mean he's perfect. I mean, I am, but it doesn't mean someone is 100% perfect, right? But if they're calling people out, calling them names, other things. I got this question a lot because the whole big brouhaha on on Facebook, is how can this person be a rabbi? It's so nasty. I said, yeah, it's a good question. I said, character traits come before everything, right? Character traits come before even the Torah was given. So yeah, you have to show respect. You certainly have to show respect, right? But in this case, I had one of my rabbis learned under somebody an absolute. He told me a rabbinic genius and knew Talmud back with the forwards, this and that. He said he lasted 2 weeks learning by him. Why? He said his character traits were so bad that he said he couldn't learn it. You're just so disgusting. So what does that mean? It means that the Torah values as much as they learn. As my Rebbe's Rebbe or Moshe Schneider, blessed memory, would say, you can't learn like a frummer student. You can't learn Torah like mathematics, because if it doesn't go inside, it doesn't come out the way it goes in, and it gets skewed, right? That's a whole different, that's a whole different thing. It's the same thing, famous story with Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell, taught ethics, Columbia University, right?
Yeah,
taught ethics and was totally unethical,
yeah.
right? So they asked him, how could you be so unethical and teach ethics? And he said, what, if I taught mathematics, expect me to be a square? Right? Same thing with Aristotle. No different. He was a big womanizer, other things, right? They caught him once also, barking like a dog, like for whatever reason. And he said, like, Aristotle does these things. Aristotle is like the great philosopher. So what do we say in Torah? No. What you see is what you get. You have to act on what the Torah says. Now, that doesn't mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean all your character traits are great. Doesn't necessarily mean that. It means we have what to work on. But for goodness sakes, you have to represent Torah, right? You have to exemplify what Torah does. So if you're quote unquote a Torah scholar, again, which is Bozo isn't, but if you would be a Torah scholar, who in the world are you calling other rabbinic authorities, and other great rabbis? Which again, Rabbi Skobach and Rabbi Singer, I'll sing their praises all day long. They're great people, no question about it. Trailblazers in a lot of ways. You're going to tell me they don't know what they're doing? You're going to tell me they don't know how to learn? Like there's a limit. There's a limit what you can get away with. Even if the person's an imbecile, we shouldn't waste any time on this. But character traits are worth everything. And if you see a person doesn't have good character traits and they're giving over Torah, run. You should not learn from them, right? And you're going to say, well, how do I know? Again, you have to see how they speak, right? You have to see how they give over. You have to see if you contact them personally, what they do, other things. It doesn't mean we're all perfect. No question. No. It doesn't mean that, right? But there's a limit to what a person can say and what a person can do, right? Even if someone has a bad day, right? They have the worst day. They have the worst day of their life. And, someone contacts them and they just blow them off. They yell at them. They this and that. They can say, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. I just had a million things on my mind or whatever. You do that often enough, person ain't coming back. No. You can't make that excuse more than once, few times. Every time I'm going to contact him, he's going to blow, he's going to blow me off over here. He's going to blow me out. No, I don't think so. Right. So, we have to be careful. I'm not going to say it's a game. We have to play like, it's the Price is Right. Put on my bow tie, save 200 points.
Let's make a deal.
Whatever. But, you have to, there is something that's crucial, which has to do with character development. And if you don't have the basics of character development, I don't care if the person's an absolute genius, in Torah, Talmud, everything. Let's say they know everything, but their character traits are an absolute Shrek. And the character traits are horrific, Can't learn from them, right? Because they didn't internalize the message, right? Yeah, you had a question. I'm probably about 10 steps back. Or a statement?
Well, no, we can work it in. But yeah, you mentioned Rabbi Skobach, and the truth is, I remember the first time I sat in one of his classes, online classes, and I got to ask a question. He was just so humble, and he was just, really clear. It was beautiful. But backing it up a little bit, I think you've covered a lot of what was on my mind. You see more of these posts today, especially B'nai Noach are posting certain Erev Rav dramatic slams, and this is so key and critical. I mean, about having integrity and growing everything properly and having a good, well balanced outlook for the future. But then you get people just slam. Now I realize you said unless they're a heretic, but then again too, what's the weight if they've been
So I'll tell you,
labeled, tattooed as heretic in front of
I got you.
I don't know.
Listen, there's a blacklist. There are people that have a blacklist of people that are heretics you should never listen to. Okay, some people find that offensive. Who are they to say that they're that they're blacklisted? Well, if you hear what they say, and someone gets up there and says, I knew somebody that their child was 3, right? At the age of 3, they were playing with dolls. So when they came out at the age of 14 that they were gay, we weren't surprised, right? It wasn't really such a big surprise. So what does this person say? The ultra Orthodox are going to say, I understand whatever, what the Bible says in Leviticus chapter 18, but it's not his fault. It's not the kid's fault. He really should have been a woman. Now, again, apologetics to the Orthodox community. To people like me, apologetics, right? And he's going to say, and this person speaks a lot, right? He's got a lot of followers, not backing down anytime soon. And he said, I know they're going to be offended, but there are some people that, just have this issue. I don't know. I have an anger issue. God says, I don't want you to be angry. But, now it's part of me. You made it part of me, right? So God's going to say, but I want you to act on it, right? We have all kinds of things. I had a doctor once tell me there's a homosexual gene, right? It hasn't really been proven. But let's say, okay, so you have an affliction, that's part of your genetical makeup. But even if it's part of your genetical makeup, does that mean I have to act on it, right? And the answer is no. Right? It might be very hard not to act on it, even though we're wired that way, right? Someone may be wired that way, right? But, a person can be wired being a miser. A person can be wired, I don't know, stuck watching the CFL. A person can be wired being a miser, right? Being, who knows? Any other thing, in this case, not normal, right? It's not a normal thing, right? It doesn't mean it can't be helped. There are psychologists out there that can help such a person. They're not supposed to act on it. It says, I know the ultra-Orthodox are going to hate me for this. You're right, because it's heretical. Doesn't matter if they're wired that way. I don't care if he grew up playing with dolls, right? I understand that. Doesn't mean he's not going to pay the price. Like, you really think, this is what he said. You really think God's going to punish him and strike him down for doing this? Yes. Yes, I do. And the reason I do is because that's what the Torah says. You're not supposed to act on it. Right? We have all kinds of quote unquote genes inside of ourselves that we're wired, or we do it ourselves, right? To make us wired in a certain way to do all kinds of terrible things that go against what the Torah says. Anger, gaiva, being conceited, watching the CFL, all these different things. I had to get that in at least twice, right? All these different things, right? So it doesn't mean I can act on it. So this person says, I don't believe God's going to zap them. Well, I believe you're a fraud. If you say that, somebody, I don't care what this other person says. 99% of what this person says may be good. You say something like that, that's heretical. That's misleading people. He said other things, right?
Yeah.
So,
where's the fear of heaven, though?
I'm not going to necessarily disagree with everybody who's on this list if they said heretical things, right? Some of them I've heard things they said, and they should be on the list, right? So the question is, okay, how much do you want to hammer someone? Right? I know someone out there is a non-Jew. He's a non-Jew. Absolute idiot. But he's not just because he's a non-Jew. I mean, I have nothing to do with him being a non-Jew. Let's say better. This guy's wearing earrings, can't pronounce anything in Hebrew, butchers every Hebrew word he says, right? And he comes out and he's hammering people also, making videos hammering people, right? Now,
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Even what he says, let's say it's true. Let's say somebody came out and said, these secular Jews, no, they're okay. They're not going to go to hell. Even if they desecrate Shabbos, they're not going to go to hell. There's a problem with saying this because the Torah says otherwise. Torah says they're going to get spiritually cut off. Torah says that they're going to get the death penalty, right? Even if they don't know anything, doesn't matter, right? There are certain things, there are ramifications. We can't just play my guitar, right? Where's my guitar? Play my guitar and sing Kumbaya and say everybody's beautiful.
That's true.
And we can't do that. Yeah. That doesn't exist. Now, this person who butchers every Hebrew word, right? It makes him sound like an idiot if anyone knows how to pronounce Hebrew, right? So this person makes these videos, right, of people, and making fun of them. Okay. Even if you want to say they're part of the Erev Rav, let's say I agree. You want to warn people? Okay. But I would think, first of all, why aren't you learning Torah? Why are you wasting time making videos? Let other people make videos. There are plenty of other people who speak about these people.
So many opportunities.
Well, you're spending way too much time on social media. And the same person I ripped to shreds, absolutely ripped to shreds because he quoted something in Shulchan Aruch. And when he quoted something in Shulchan Aruch, he said, see, this is true. So I agreed. What he said was true. The only problem is the later commentaries disagree what the norm is. And that wasn't the case. Now, if this person lived in a Jewish community, which he never has, if he would have lived in a Jewish community, he would have known what he said wasn't true. The statement he said was true in the sense that he quoted what the Shulchan Aruch, what the Code of Jewish Law said. Problem is, he didn't go look at the commentaries. Right? Why didn't he look at the commentaries? Because he doesn't know how to learn. Right? He doesn't know how to learn. No one's ever taught him. So if he went and looked at the commentaries, he would have known what it was really speaking about, and he would have realized even the statement that he said was true, we don't hold by, and it doesn't exist. Right? Now, how do I know this to be true? First of all, I looked it up. Right? And I looked at what the commentaries say. But second of all, even if I didn't look it up, I would know clear as day by living in different Orthodox communities around the globe that, I shouldn't say around the globe, but a few places where that thing that he brought down does not exist. Doesn't exist. Now, there are reasons it doesn't exist. Right? In one place it might exist for different reasons. Right? But in the vast majority of the world, it doesn't exist. Now, what happens? Person has a drop of knowledge. Right? He has a little bit of knowledge. And he quotes something, but if he would have lived in a Jewish community, he would have known that statement isn't true. 100% would have known that statement isn't true. Right? Let's say better. What the context of that statement is. So since I know what the statement is, someone pointed this out to me. That's the only reason I know it. And when I watched the video, which made me want to puke, but when I watched the video, and I saw what it spoke about, I looked it up. So one of my Q&As, I dedicated to that, showing what the person said, why it wasn't true, and why that the later commentaries talk about what the case is, and why what he said wasn't true. Right now, again, it's in context, it's looking it up, but so if you're gonna make a video, right? First of all, this person's not Jewish. First of all, second of all, if you're going to make a video about Jewish law, you better darn know what you're talking about, right? You better know it inside and out. Don't just quote me something. I can also do that, right? Don't just say, I know how to read in Hebrew. Oh, that's beautiful. You know how to read Hebrew. Good, right? But you have to understand the context. You have to understand where it comes from. But not only that, even if you didn't understand anything, right? If you didn't understand anything, if you would have lived in a Jewish community, you would have asked the question, okay, why isn't this true? Why don't we do this? Because in every Orthodox community, maybe except, a few, that the vast majority do not do this, period. End of discussion. But this person's not aware of that, right? So my question was, first of all, if you're going to quote Hebrew, know how to say it. Second of all, why are you wasting time making videos when you really should be learning? I understand you want to do outreach. Outreach is the most important thing. According to some people, it's nothing more important. You got to be sitting and learning. You should be learning what other people do it. You want to tell me, okay, I've been learning for 10 years. I've learned most of the Talmud, most of the commentaries, this, that. You have what to say. You want to give it over? It's one thing. But you sound like an idiot, right? As someone commented to me, he said, I don't understand. Why is this person talking? He can't pronounce Hebrew. He can't pronounce Hebrew right. I said, I get it. I watched it. I just laughed. It was good. I mean, if I drank a little bit, I would have been hysterically laughing. I mean, he sounds like an idiot, right? Now, based on that, so he wants
he's
to
in
come
my
out.
phone book.
Yeah, you're right.
Scroll my phone for you.
So based on that, what some people are just looking for the Erev Rav, right? That's what some people are. They're out there. That's all they do.
Hunting rabbits.
Yeah, that's all they do. But what's behind what they do, right? Let's cut them some slack. What's behind what they do is that if it's heretical, then you don't want people following them. You don't want people listening to them. No. Right? If it's a reform and conservative movement, you bash them as much as possible to make sure people know it's a fraud. Right? I get it. In my humble opinion, for what it's worth, I think it's overkill. I think people got the message. Sometimes there are new speakers out there or whatever. They say something heretical. Okay, nail them. They should be nailed. People should be warned. I agree. I definitely don't disagree with that. Right? But if every last second
warning is one thing.
Of every
label
video
is another, isn't it?
Label, again, I'm not against labeling if it's true. If these people are heretics, people have to be warned. They absolutely have to be warned. My only question is, if every single second of every single class is going to be about that, that's overkill. Yeah. I think it's overkill. Now, other people may disagree. They may disagree. That's okay. Right? I got big shoulders over here. That's fine. I think people should be warned. Right? I do it myself sometimes. But I think what that does is it takes away from the topic at hand. Right? What it does is also it can turn off people. And it turns off a lot of people because what do you see? You see warmongers. There are some people out there, they just like to bash other people.
Yeah, they're looking for a fight.
And they're looking to bash someone.
Thrill.
So I'm not, again, some of these people are very easy to find to bash, right? It's not that hard, because they make stupid statements and whatever, right? Now, is it my responsibility every time someone makes a stupid statement? No. If I've already warned people, fine. So I did a little bit of overkill with Julian Edelman. Okay, but I want people to understand where anti-Semitism
and the CFL, a little bit of overkill.
Right. And I don't have his T-shirt. I didn't burn it either. Right. But nonetheless, go Pats. Yeah. Anyway, nonetheless, people have to know and know how to view it. Right. Every single last thing someone says, even if they're one of these polished speakers, you don't have to call them out. If they've already been called out, you want to use it for overkill and say, oh, look what this person said now. Look what they said again. Okay. Right? I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I think what some people do is they just get tired of it. They get tired of the whole thing. I'm not saying they shouldn't have a blacklist. Right? Not at all. Right? There are people you shouldn't listen to that, thinks that they think that homosexuality is okay, even if they're Orthodox. Right? They think you can't be homophobic. And they think other things that are heretical to Torah. There's no such thing as Olam Haba. There's no such thing as reward and punishment. That's pretty severe. Right? That is pretty severe. So again, should these people get called out? I think they should. How much should they get called out? I think a person has to use discretion. Right? Not, I use a lot of the same examples. I'm not looking for it, per se. But I will use it, if I have to. But I think it's overkill. I think it's very much is overkill. So now you got students of these people, and they're doing the same thing, 150,000 times. They place it here, they place it there, they place it somewhere else. So if the rabbis themselves are doing it, it's one thing. They're learning, they're doing their own thing, fine. If it's their students, why are they wasting time? Because everyone has to know. Forget everyone has to know. There are not people who know. right? Why are you wasting time? Learn how to say Hebrew better. Learn how to learn better. Learn how to keep Torah and mitzvahs, right? You want to sit there and make videos. Again, if you want to dedicate, let's say, 10% of your time, when you're online, you want to dedicate 10% of your time like tithing for the sake of doing outreach, okay, right? 10%, not 80%. Right? That's my issue, because these people are wasting way too much time. Way too much time making what the essence is subordinate, or making what's subordinate the essence. Right? You're gonna say, oh, I learned this and I'm gonna call someone out. Learn. Don't waste people's time over here. They'll get the information if they want to get it. Forget about making your videos. Go back into the hole you crawled out of, and sit and learn. That's what you have to do. You want to convert, learn about blessings, learn about Shabbos, learn about other things. It's the problem. It's the most important person calling out the Erev Rav? I don't think so. I don't think that's more. I'm not saying it's not something you have to do, or not do, but that you don't spend 90% of your time doing that.
No.
I just think it's overkill. And again, people may say, well, I think you're wrong. These people have to be called out. Okay. Right? Yeah. Let the rabbis do what they do. I don't really care. Let the rabbis do what they want to do. As long as they're not heretics. They're students. No, they should be learning. They shouldn't be wasting their time doing this. They should be learning more. Right? And guarantee people, I don't even have to take a survey, because this is a given. These people are doing that. How much time they spend in learning compared to the time they're on social media? Let's take a lie detector test. I guarantee it's not 50-50. Not even close. Right? I guarantee it's like 90-10. Or 80-20. I'm not, and I'm not exaggerating, because I see what people put out there. I mean, you say, what are you doing on social media? I'm on my computer most of the day anyway. Right? But I see things that show up in my news feed. Right? Sometimes I look, see if I have to answer, not answer, this, that. But I see what people are putting out. And if they're on, why are they spending so much time? I understand why I'm spending so much time. Maybe it is too much time for me also. True. Right? But I got chunks of time. I'm learning. I got my whole morning. I'm learning pretty much.
Wow.
I don't believe this guy's learning more than a couple hours a day at that. And if he's learning a couple hours a day, I guarantee you at least an hour of social media. More is more. So the more he's doing social media.
Some people have their phones with them all the time,
Yeah, right. So the more they're doing that, the less they're learning. And if the less they're learning, that can't be what the rabbis want.
No.
Right? But, I did see recently someone put up this video, and his rabbi said, great job. All right. Fine. He called out someone who was a heretic. Yeah, for what he said. Okay. But why is this person wasting his time on social media? Because he's got a mitzvah to do kiruv. No, he doesn't. He's got a mitzvah to learn what he needs to do. He wants to dedicate a small amount of time, to this. Let him do it. Let him do it. But don't make the majority the minority, the minority the majority. Because if you do that, then what's your learning worth? I'll give another example. If a person just was, watching reruns, of some, I don't know, of some show for 4 or 5 hours. And they say, oh, that was so enjoyable. I got a lot out of it, this, that. Could have been learning. They could have been learning. Yeah, but it was enjoyable. I want to relax. I don't have an obligation to learn anyway. Right? Okay. Maybe that's all true, but there's also something about your mind, right? You got to satisfy the mind intellectually. A person's got to learn. So what are we making the essence of our time? Are we making the essence of our time, things that don't matter? Or are we making the essence of our time really what matters? Okay, so I'll take a small amount of time and I'll use it for these other things. Fine, but it has to be limited, right? Unless the person, is an unbelievable rabbinic scholar, they've learned a lot, so they dedicate more time, this and that. Okay, that we can have a discussion on. These people are not doing that. And I hammered somebody else. Thank God now he's learning yeshiva, right? But I hammered this person for so long. I said, just get off the stupid thing. All you're doing is wasting your time posting this stuff. That's not going to help you grow.
So true. Rabbi,
it's a total waste of time.
for sure.
A small amount of time, 10% of the time you want dedicated to it, fine. Right? Even 20% to a certain extent, I'll say okay. The rest of the time, when you have an opportunity to learn, you don't waste your time on this other stuff. That's what I would say about that.
Rabbi, one thing I've always said since becoming B'nai Noach and even before is that one of the greatest things the rabbis do teach is how to learn, as you've mentioned today. Knowing how to learn goes a long way. For B'nai Noach, I mean, I know that myself, I don't foresee anywhere in the future where learning is not going to be an option. I think it's something that we all will do all our days. But could you summarize this in one quick nutshell, just for Noahites out there? Is there a point, a definable point that you could say now you should start handing that over? Maybe you should be doing something in your community, with your family, with your friends, or even like on social media. But I know that so many people chasing.
Some people will say, even if you know something, you should give it over. Right? In the world of outreach, even if you know something, right, you should be able to give it over. So I give classes on the book Derech Hashem, teaching people how to answer the major questions, philosophical questions about the soul, the inclination, reincarnation, all these different things, and they're going to go back in their communities, and teach that. I mean, other things they're learning as well. But a person really has to realize that for a person to be able to teach, certainly within Judaism, you have to be overflowing with knowledge to be able to give over to others. Now, does that mean that you won't be successful with lesser knowledge? No. But one of the things that my rabbi ingrained in my head, right, was that I want to go out and do outreach when I was much younger. And he said, you'll probably be successful, but he said, if you have an opportunity to sit and learn and you don't have any financial issues, you go out 10 times stronger, you go out like fire. Now, I said, you just broke my dream in like 35 seconds. So I basically said, if I'm going to listen, you have to be the one to teach me. and I sort of used chutzpah along the way. And that's how
hang on to him. Yeah.
He said, like, without a vow, and that's how I got my foot in the door. Now, he was 100% right. So I spent the next 8-9 years, just going through massive amount of material, Jewish philosophy, Talmud, etc.
And we're thankful you did.
And the knowledge, he was 100% right. That the knowledge giving over is 10 times stronger than if I would have gone out, when I was much younger. Now,
the clarity you've been talking about
there are other repercussions to that, but the point in conclusion, because I know we have to go here, the point is that I don't think there's any question. The more knowledge a person has, as long as you know what you're doing, you should be able to give it over. Not everyone has that ability, to do that. But you will be 10 times more successful because you have a much broader base, right? There are plenty of things I don't know. I got plenty what to learn. But when a person has a broader
you have plenty what to share.
When you have a broader base and you have a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge just keeps coming and coming and coming, and it's in the language that is used is like you're an overflowing spring. When a person has that, again, doesn't have to be encyclopedic knowledge, right? But you have a certain level of knowledge that you're just overflowing to give it over, right? That's when the time is. Now, would it have been that if I would have gone to if I would have gone out, started my own community like I wanted to do, it doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't have been successful, right? But I still would not have had that base, that base of knowledge that I certainly have now, or when when I'm South American, I did other things, whatever, that base of knowledge, it's always not wasted. It comes out in different places where I never would have thought of. Like certain times a piece of Talmud will come out and I say, hey, where'd that come from? It's like part of my psyche, like somewhere like deep, you just have to know how to bring it out. Right. But, some will say, even if you have a little bit of knowledge, you should give that over to others. Right. But again, it depends depends where, etc. And, a person has to know their place, as we mentioned before. But giving over means you have to be very well grounded. And more importantly, you have to have a Rebbe. You have to have someone you answer to, someone you can go to, right? And again, my Rebbe told me point blank, he's like, I'm an old man, take my advice. He basically told me, in my language, I have to be off my cotton picking hay to want to go out and teach right now. He said, you got an opportunity to sit and learn. You got money coming out of your nose. You can sit and learn exponentially for years. He said, I promise you. He said, He said, you have my word. He said, I'll be the one to guide you. He said, but you have my word that if you sit and learn, go through one tractate, another tractate, this book, this, that. He said, I promise you, when you want to go out, as they say in Spanish, fuego, right? It's going to be absolute fire, right? Yeah. And he was right. He was 100% right. Without that base knowledge, very true.
It could be the negativity you spoke of earlier if you don't have that base knowledge.
No, not yet. But you have to have humility. You also have to know when to go to someone who's bigger than you, and know you don't know. But I'm saying, even at a base knowledge, right? A much smaller base knowledge. I'm saying, let's say 3-4 years after I became an Orthodox Jew to go out then. Would I have been successful if I had the ability to speak and other things? I probably could have been, right? Would it have been the same as it would have been 10 years later? Definitely not.
Rabbi, I got to wind it down. But even like you've mentioned Rabbi Singer, I remember looking at some of his earlier stuff, very, very, very younger day. And you could see he had knowledge in him and he wanted to share, but it wasn't coming out. Years and years and years of growth, learning, being involved, doing what he does. You could just see the refinement for the timing.
100%.
And I think Hashem knows your days.
That's the difference. That's doesn't mean you won't see success. But if you have that broader knowledge, it's a whole different ballgame.
For sure. Well, Rabbi, I got to wind this down to get ready for my next class. You know how much I appreciate your classes. I don't want to patronize you in any way, shape, or form. You got a lot of people there in the chat today that, I encourage you to check it over. I think you nailed it again today. You put this out of the park. There was so much clarity in today's message, and you covered a lot of ground. Does that mean we get to move on to Chapter 2, Part 6 next week, or we got a Part 9 for this?
We got Part 9.
Oh.
We're not even hitting the whatever. We'll see if we get through it next week.
I must need it.
We got plenty here. I mean, one thing that I hit that I think was an important thing. I know you're winding down here, is the idea what's in my mind eventually may come out of my mouth. That's a huge thing. That is, that's a huge thing. And Julie Adelman, if you're listening to this, contact me. Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on Facebook. I'm ready. I'm ready to take on the challenge whenever you want.
All right, folks, we're going to wind it down for this week. Now we're off next week, right? Because you got
next week is good. It's the week after. It's going to be Passover, but next week we're still good.
Well, there you go, folks. You've heard it right from the rabbi.
It's going to be Part 9. Don't listen to him. It's going to be Part 9, Mishnah 5. We're not going on to Mishnah
Chapter 2, Mishnah 5, Part 9 next week, folks. We're signing up for now. I got to go. Have a great week, folks.